Hello and welcome to Python for Data Science Spring 2021. I would like to start with, first of all, welcome, and second of all, I'd like to wish you Happy New Year. Let's hope this year will be a better year than last year. Before we go on to explain what is Python and why is it so important to learn Python, I will talk about the syllabus. I will talk about my expectation, and I will talk about my philosophy in teaching and how it comes down to what is really important for me when it comes down to grading. So I would like to start with the syllabus, and I will try to make sense out of it, and if you are not familiar with it, please read it or please review it. So first of all, the textbook that I have chosen is Python Cookbook, which is a really good book. I chose this book because it's not the latest version of the book. It's not the new version of Python. It's about structure, about the basic elements that we will discuss in this class. And so this is a good book. It's a good foundation. And it's also not expensive like any other book that nowadays offer some insight into Python that costs more than $70 or $80. So this is the objective. And the book is also available in the library. I'm not allowed to promote that, but if you search Python Cookbook as a PDF, you will find the ability to download it as a PDF from one of those websites or one of those classes that teach Python. So this is the accessibility that is important to me, that I try to accommodate that into the class itself. My teaching strategy consists of online classes, which means that all my lecture will be recorded. Usually it consists more than one page. Usually it consists more than the page itself, consists of my lectures, and then another page on the code, and then another page about connections that the code makes and abbreviation and what does it entail. And then there's example that usually I have another page that provide examples of how to implement that and how to apply that. One of the things that I often ask before talking about the teaching strategy is what is the requirement I have for the students who enroll. I expect that the students have at least 2 or 3 courses that focus on programming language, which means that even though I'm going to cover all the grounds in Python, if you have some back knowledge, it will help you to apply it and to develop it. Why? Python is a really all over the place with regard to its facilities, ability to extend its ecosystem. It's not only the programming language itself, but you can extend it to, for example, to other application. You can communicate with other application. Nowadays, there's a lot of application that runs on Python. Example, if you are a fanatic as I am to the Mac computers are based on Python, and so this is something that is really important, and this is why Python is open source, so you can modify the code, you can change it, and I will talk about that later on. Back to our syllabus and back to the grading and how it's going to play out. So I said that I'm going to give you lectures online. The lectures or the module also include assignment. Every week you will have an assignment, and then you have final project. And you're going also to see different text readings. When I mean text, I mean blogs. We do not have a journal of Python that deals with the philosophy of Python. We have blogs that talks about what they apply and how to apply that. That's something that I want you to read and understand where they're coming from and how they took it and what type of structure they apply in order for them to develop it. The course evaluation will consist of personal blog, weekly assignments, which is 40%, then student peer review for your final project, where you're going to review your peers, and then the final project 50%. Why is that? I'm very keen, and this is from my own experience, is that when you are doing your own project and you put the effort into the final project, you probably want to take it to the next step. By using the project as the main tool and facility to evaluate what you have learned, you're going to spend more time on the project, you're going to try to develop it and try to see what is the next step in your career if you're going to use Python or any other tools in order for you to achieve your objective in the future. So this is something that helped me a lot with regard to what I have entailed. So when I did my undergrad or graduate, I came up with a project that helped me to develop to the next stage and something that is really important. So the blog, I'll talk about the blog and everything else, but this is the structure that I like to entail. Some students do not like it, but for me and for other students it works very well. In your assignment, you're going to open a blog. And I don't care what type of blog you're going to open. You can open a blogger.com or your WordPress or USF blog that have the idea, and you're going to share the URL or the blog address. If you did not publish your blog, it will not be, I will not have access to it, and so I will grade you as not submitting the blog. So you make sure that your blog has access and accessible, and someone from the outside can review your work. You're going to download Python and you're going to get exercise on Python. And you're going to read this book as the structure of the course. So this is the 3 steps that I want you to conduct in your first assignment. And this is something that I'm going to repeat again and again through the structure. This structure is I'm going to repeat again in the rest of the modules with regard to you going to receive a new code, you're going to implement that, you see how you're going to implement it, you're going to discuss it in your blog, and then share it with other one, and then move on and read the textbook on the subject or blogs on the subject and see how other people implement that code for their own production. So this is the structure of my class. Now I want to start talking about Python and a little bit background on the subject in order for you to better understand the idea behind it. I'm going to talk about the history. I'm going to talk about machine learning language. I'm going to talk about common basic syntax in Python, and how is it different from Java or any other programming language you probably learned in the past. So Python was created in 1991, and the creator of the Python was, until last year, was a Google employee, and he decided to resign last year, and now he is trying to develop his own programming language. But this is how the guy that we often does not hear in the news about, he did not create a new startup company, he created a program. And I think this is much more value than creating a company. So this is something that Rosen is really important, and probably one of the founders of computer language in nowadays. So this is something that Python is used by companies such as Google, Yahoo, YouTube, and many Linux distribution games, use that, and a lot of apps use it too. And this is something that is not being this is something is very become a very common sense. So NASA is using it. Google, even filmmakers such as um, Lucasfilm used Python to render the animation. So this is a powerful language, and is probably one of the things that usually Intel in the market reflect on the market, where the job people that knows Python, and the popularity of Python is to continue to grow as we are experiencing. And this is something that you can enjoy because you will have better understanding why is it so important. So as you can see, 30% of the market in this case in 2014 thought that Python is the leading language. One of the biggest assets or one of the biggest resources for this course is the python.org. This is where you're going to get, if you do not understand me, you do not understand my notes, you do not understand my accent, you do not understand where are you going with this. This is where you can get all the information about Python, and it's based on the website itself. It provides a lot of documentation. It also provides you with a Python application, so you will see tutorial, library, and everything else that you need to have in order for you to fully understand what it is. I will refer to in my notes to this tutorial because it's really good and it's basically very understandable with regard to it. So one of the things that we need to talk about is the software application. What is the interface that Python provides? You're not going to see, in compared to what you experience with Microsoft Office interface, the interface with Python is a little different. We have a lot of features that is basically to some remind of the old days of DOS. And so it is based on layers of the machine and ability to have some idea of execution. You're going to execute the code, and by doing that, you're going to compile or provide interpretation to the code and something that Python give you as the interface. In the software categories, we have usually two types of categories: programs written for computer system that have a compiler, and application for users such as WordPress. So this is the difference between Microsoft Office that does not have a compiler in compared to Python that has a compiler. You will be able to execute the code that you wrote in order and to see the result, something that you don't see in Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word. So application, again, the idea of what is it entail and how to operate that is something that I'm quite sure that is already. But Python also works with the operating system, such as I said before, with Apple. If you have an Apple machine, the background of Apple is basically Python. It's not basically, it is Python in compared to Microsoft that is based on DOS. So it provides the ability to load and running application. It allocate memory and process time. It provides input and output and manage files of information. All of that is part of the Python ecosystem. So this is something that it apply, and programs are written in programming language usually entails what it is. So it is ability to create special or limited language with a set of rules and symbols used to construct the computer program, and usually ability to interact with other programming. So this is the bigger pictures of programming language and idea what it is. We have high level, we have a machine language. In the case of Python, we have both the ability to have a machine interface, and we have the ability to have high level language, what you probably learn in Pascal or C++ or in Java. So the machine learning is ability to give instructions in order for you to save it into the memory in order for it to operate, and the ability to execute it and ability to run it, and again ability to present it in high level, or ability to connect those dots, and ability to have ability to retrieve it, ability to implement that, all of those things that needs to be applied. So when we are talking about binary example, we usually apply some syntax that going to be very straightforward with regard to Python syntax. So in binary, you declare the binary, you declare what is the bit that is it 0 or 1, and then you have the identifier, what it is and how it's been calculated and how to be applied to. We also have grammars, and we're going to learn about grammars, and we're going to learn about syntax in the way that we apply and the ability to see that, and we're going to learn about that, and this is really important, how to check errors in Python and what does it entail. The compiler, as I said, ability to execute your code and to see what is the end result of it, and again, this is something that Python does so well. So the ability to source program, the compiler, the assembly language, the assembler, all of that can be compiled together into Python, basically two different aspects of the programming language that can be complied to and applied to. So those are the terminology that I want you to go over. This is something that source program, what is it? What is object code? What is a machine code? We will talk about that, but I wanted to give you some background on the programming language in order for you to apply, in order for you to execute or understand the mentality behind it and what does it entail. We are going to see what is a linker. This is a program that pulls other programs together so they can run. Something that Python do so well, and in this case Python has libraries that we code that already embedded or written and run the code. Example, one of my favorite application is coming from R. R is another programming language, and what the Python can do is run the R in order for it to execute and be able to see the result of it. So running a program usually consists of few steps: a machine language program, which is executable file, data entering, and a compile result, which also require CPU, which is the essence of a computer. 7 steps taken by the CPU to run a program, usually instructions, decode, retrieve data, execute, and store the result if necessary, is part of any programming language and part of the syntax that we will see also in Python. The syntax error also occur when we have wrong syntax in grammar, a running error or logical error, and that can happen all the time, and you will run it into Python and you will see the result. So again, the issue of machine or language, when written in a format understood, is often use object code, and this is something that we're going to see throughout the semester with that regard. The interpretation or the interpreter is the source programming the input and allowed us to do that, and complete interpretation, what is diagnostic, what is more ability to support that, and what do we do in order for us to apply. So I lay out again the issue of the source and how we are going to apply the Python, but we also need to start thinking about the virtual machine. Virtual machine is somewhere code that is posted on the web. So we will learn that Python is also able to do that using a virtual machine in order for us to execute the code and provide interpretation. Example of this is that we have a compiler, we have an online compiler that, again, this is an application that's allowed us to run the code in Python online and be able to execute the code itself. So the idea in Python, this is where I wanted to show you where it is running. Java, in compared to Python, has a code, a compiler, a runtime environment, and computer. In Python, we do not have the runtime environment. We have instead the interpreter. And this is where the code is written directly and executed by interpreter in order for us to see that. Types of commands into the interpreter and see the result immediately, something that Java usually have a hard time to do. So typical Python often both apply the interpreter and the compiler. It is an interactive interface to Python with a real print loop in order for you to do that. And in this case, because I am a statistical idea of mind, I usually like to have a square root, and then the square root, what is it entail, and this is how to do that. So this is again small pieces of the big picture. I don't want to get into much about the programming language. We will do that next week or the next module number 2. But I want you to start installing the environment of Python. Windows, you need to go and download the Python to your computer, and you're going to install it, and you're going to run the IDLE from the start menu. And this is going to have a different interfaces than we see in the Mac. In the Mac, it's already installed. So we can do that. I can show you the differences. And when we do that, in my terminal, if I will type Python, if I will spell it correctly, if I'm correct, okay. So I have the Python. By typing the Python into my terminal, I can see the result immediately and see how it come about. However, there is other application that is available in for you to use, and it's PyCharm. This is an online application that is quite nice and quite easy to use. If I'll find it, okay. So this is PyCharm, and it's built by the community, and it will load the components. And again, I will need to log on to it in order for you to start, and it will already give you the terminal and the code and everything else. So this is the two options that you have if you want to run the terminal from here, or do you want to run as an interface software that you are more familiar with in order for you to run it more successfully. My recommendation, start with applications as PyCharm because it's easy to use and it's easy. But if you are more hardcore, I recommend you to use the terminal in order for you to do that. So the idea, what it is, how to apply that. the windows, what it entails and how to apply that. And again, this is something that I often use and how to apply that. There are many development environments in Python. There is the IDLE, there is the PyDev, and there's the Emacs. Each one of them has a different context, a different structure, and a different application, and I will go over that. I know that this is only the first class, and probably you have more other things going on, so I will go over that in the coming weeks. But this is something that I want you to remember about that. The IDEA is the official IDL distributor of Python on Mac, and this is something that is ability to see the what it entails and how to apply to it. And this is where you can download the one of the PyDev application, and this is part of what we're going to do. I do not recommend to start big or start all over the place. I would recommend you to start with something simple, start with the basic, start with a book, and start with how to apply and how to develop it. I often like to end up with a joke, and this is my joke of the time. And this is something that I often use with my families or relatives that usually ask, what do I do now? And I would say playing with Python or writing code for Python. And they usually come up with those type of answer. So I hope you enjoy or understand the structure. I know this is a lot of to grab in one session. I hope it will make you learn more about Python. I hope it make more sense. I will post more ideas and more terminologies about the Python and how to run it on Canvas. Until next time, one more last issue. I will also post more work on the GitHub where I have the Python class, so you'll be able to see more. So until next time, I hope you have a good week in class. I hope I will see you next time. Until then, have fun.